casual and athletic shoe prices to only $9.99 a pair.
You're watching CBS News' continuing coverage of Showdown in the Gulf. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here are Harry Smith and Paula Zahn.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of CBS This Morning. CBS News coverage of the war in the Gulf continues. I'm Paula Zahn.
And I'm Harry Smith, and here are the headlines at this hour. The world awaits an Israeli response to an Iraqi missile attack last night. 2 more American planes are down in the Gulf War. The Allied assault on Iraq continues, and as the war goes on, so do the protests. Israeli fighter jets patrolled Israeli skies this morning after at least 8 Iraqi Scud missiles slammed into the Mediterranean coast. It is not yet known if the Israeli cabinet has ordered them to retaliate for the attack. But there is an unconfirmed report that 8 Israeli jets are already on their way to Iraq. A flight of jets was seen flying over southern Lebanon. The Scud missiles did not carry chemical weapons, but their conventional warheads did damage enough and injured at least 10 people. The United States and other members of the Gulf Alliance are urging Israeli restraint, but the Israelis say they have a right to defend their country. In Saudi Arabia, officials of the alliance now confirm the loss of 2 more U.S. planes. One is an Air Force F-15E, a so-called Strike Eagle with a 2-man crew. The other is a Navy attack jet, also with a 2-man crew, and an A-6 Intruder. Both crews are missing. The first plane lost was a single-seat Navy F-18. Its pilot, Lieutenant Commander Michael Spiker, is officially listed as missing. There is also a report this morning of a first American ground casualties. 2 Marines and a Navy medic are said to have received minor wounds from Iraqi artillery fire near the Kuwait border. We also have the first pictures of Baghdad under bombardment. Tape smuggled out by a British ITN news crew. Shows incoming bombs and rockets and anti-aircraft fire as they lit up the sky on the first night of war. A member of that crew talked about the precision of the Allied attack.
Well, it's the safest bombing raid I've ever been in. I mean, you don't, in a bombing raid, say in Beirut, you immediately take cover, but it became apparent that they were only going after strategic targets. So if that's anything to go by, we felt safe at that period of time because we knew that they were going for strategic targets.
And as the war goes on, so do the protests for peace. At UCLA, hundreds of students occupied a university building. And at Missoula, Montana, demonstrators held up the start of a basketball game that drew an angry response from the crowd. Shouts of USA, USA. Finally, a new CBS News New York Times poll shows overwhelming support for the U.S. military action against Iraq. That's the headlines to this hour. And the question on a lot of people's minds this morning is whether or not Israel will in fact retaliate for the Scud missile attack last night.
And we're hearing a lot of conflicting reports at this time. So we're going to go to Tel Aviv right now, where Bill McLaughlin is going to join us on the telephone. Bill, the Agence French press is actually citing unnamed political sources in Israel who say that the Israeli leadership has in fact decided on a measured response to the attacks last night. There seems to be some confusion whether these cabinet meetings have concluded at all. Help us out with that, if you would.
The enlarged cabinet meeting, Paula, is over, and so is the so-called inner cabinet. But there's a very restricted war cabinet going on, just a few people, 6 or less, and they're trying to work it out. They're trying to work it out with Washington. There are a lot of complications. I think what's going to happen is they have to wait and see whether or not Baghdad tries to hit Israel again tonight. The expectation is that it will. If it does, at that moment, AWACS and the spy satellites will be able to pinpoint the location of the mobile missile launchers, give that information to the Israeli Air Force, and I think then the Israeli Air Force will respond, and will respond massively, but selectively at those military targets. There will be, I do not think there will be Israeli retaliation on civilian population centers in Iraq, That's not what Israel wants. It's not what the United States wants. Israel wants to do everything it can to help the U.S. keep its Arab coalition together while at the same time defending itself. But I'm also told that there's another reason why Israel may retaliate. The Israeli population feels a bit down right now. They need a good morale booster. They have to know they have a government that can lead. That's another reason. And no one here liked the attack. Although only 12 were wounded, 4 people died of heart attacks. More than 500 Israelis went to hospitals. They're looking to their government to do something about this Iraqi threat.
Bill McLaughlin, thanks so much. Right now, we're going to turn our attention to Tehran, Saudi Arabia, where we catch up with Scott Pelley, who has some new information on American bombing runs. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Paula. There is some trouble with American bombing runs this morning. After last night's air raids, there is an imperative this morning to destroy Saddam Hussein's aircraft and air bases. But at this moment, the weather is bad over many of those target sites. We are told that 2 squadrons of U.S. Air Force F-16 Fighting Falcons took off to attack sites in Iraq and Kuwait, but because of bad weather over the target areas, those airplanes returned to their bases with their bombs still hanging underneath those wings. The airplanes will try to be rescheduled a little later today to see if the weather clears.
We need to cut off Scott Pelley, who's reporting from Saudi Arabia this morning. The United States commander in the Persian Gulf is about to hold his first briefing. Here's General Schwarzkopf.
Storm. I would tell you that to date, the campaign is going just about exactly as we expected it to go. As in the early days of any battle, the fog of war is present, but I would tell you that having been in the outset of several battles myself and having been at in the early hours of the Grenada campaign, I would tell you that we probably have a more accurate picture of what's going on in Operation Desert Storm than I have ever had before in the early hours of a battle. That picture is not perfect, but I think it's pretty good, and I want to just kind of bring you up to date on where we are at the present time. As far as air operations are concerned, we are flying a total of about 2,000 air sorties of all types each day. More than 80% of all of those sorties have successfully engaged their targets. The sorties are being flown by the United States Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, and some Army. We also have 6 other nations that are involved with us in this coalition: Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the United Kingdom, the Canadians, the French, and the Italians have all participated in the air campaign to date. In addition to flying offensive operations, they are also flying defensive air operations over Saudi Arabia to protect the kingdom and also to protect, naturally, our forces that are here. To date, we have lost 7 aircraft. 2 United States Navy aircraft, 1 F-18 and 1 A-6, 1 Air Force F-15, 1 Kuwaiti A-4, 2 British Tornadoes, and the most recent one was an Italian Tornado. With regard to the disposition of the pilots, we are carrying all of the pilots as missing in action. However, we now have pretty good information that the Kuwaiti pilot is probably safe in the hands of the Kuwaiti resistance. At sea, of course, in addition to flying against the targets that the Navy is taking on, the Navy is also in the business of protecting the fleet, both with their ships and with their aircraft aloft. We're tracking any potential adversaries that look like they're coming out to threaten the ships, and we're engaging those as required. This morning, the Navy has engaged 3 enemy patrol boats and either disabled them or sunk them. In addition to that, we have increasing numbers of amphibious ships moving into the Gulf area at this time. On the ground, of course, the United States Army and the United States Marine Corps is continuing to defend Saudi Arabia. We're also repositioning our forces for further action. To date, there has been no direct hostile confrontation on the ground. However, yesterday there was a slight artillery duel, artillery on the part of the enemy that was immediately reacted to by our air. and the artillery was silenced. During that duel, we had 2 Marines that were lightly wounded in action. Of course, the significant news today, I'm sure you all know about, but there were 7 Scuds fired early this morning against Israel, and there was 1 Scud missile fired against Dhahran. The 1 Scud missile that was fired against Dhahran was destroyed by a United States Army Patriot missile. Fortunately, the 7 missiles that were fired against Israel, I would characterize as having yielded absolutely insignificant results. And as a result, I think to date we can say that the enemy Scud campaign has been ineffective. Now for the good news. As you know, finding the fixed missile launchers is a relatively easy business, but finding the mobile launchers is like finding a needle in a haystack, as you can well imagine. This morning, the United States Air Force found 3 mobile erector launchers with missiles on board inside Iraq. These launchers were obviously aimed at Saudi Arabia, given their positions. Those 3 mobile elector launchers have been destroyed. In addition to that, at the same time, we found 8 more mobile erector launchers in the same location. We are currently attacking those launchers, and we have confirmed the destruction of 3 more of those mobile erector launchers, and we are continuing to attack the others, and I assure you we will attack them relentlessly until either we are prevented from attacking them any further by weather or we have destroyed them all. In concluding my remarks, I want to make just 2 points. The first point is the one that you've heard from the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but I think it bears repeating. And that's that we are only 36 hours into what is a campaign. The President of the United States said that this is not Panama. It will not be over in a day, and it certainly won't. So we are just continuing on in this campaign, and the campaign will continue until we have accomplished our objectives. The second point I'd like to make is that we're doing absolutely everything we possibly can in this campaign to avoid injuring or hurting or destroying innocent people. We have said all along that this is not a war against the Iraqi people, and I think very shortly you're going to hear a little bit more about what we're doing to try and avoid hurting innocent people. At this point, I'd like to introduce to you Lieutenant General Chuck Horner. Chuck Horner is the commander of the United States Central Command Air Forces. Since August, we have been planning this campaign. And I think the one person who is probably could be considered the architect of the entire air campaign as is being conducted today is Chuck Horner. He is certainly the one person more than anyone else who is responsible for the magnificent airmen who are out there conducting this campaign today. He's a superb leader. I am very proud to have him as a member of my team, and I'm exceptionally proud of the absolutely fantastic job he and the members of his staff and the people under his command have done to date in this air campaign. And with that, I'd like to turn my podium over to Chuck Horner for his remarks.
Thank you, General Schwarzkopf. The objectives of the air campaign were set out by General Schwarzkopf in August, and we've worked hard to bring together this very complex and very large campaign plan. We've been able to integrate all our forces because we all fly off an common air tasking order, and you heard that we have forces from all the services in the United States, plus many countries in the multinational force. We've been able to execute because we've trained very hard. And you'll find sorties where a Saudi aircraft will be dropping bombs and be escorted by an American fighter, provided support by other aircraft such as from the countries mentioned. I can give you one example. It just happened the first day. It was an excellent example where we had a American F-15s escorting Saudi aircraft and also providing, the Navy was providing ECM jamming, and the Saudi airplane put 4 craters on the runway. And I'll tell you right now, we couldn't have taken a pickup truck and put those bombs and laid them out there any more accurately. So we've had some very, very good cooperation and integration of our forces. The types of aircraft we have involved in this campaign have been key to its success. There's no doubt that our air defense and our awareness of what's going on in the air battlefield are result in large measure because of what the AWACS provides us and the defense that aircraft such as the F-14 and the F-15 provide our forces. It has been in some respect a technology war, although it is fought by men and women. Certainly one of the strongest guidance we had from the very start was to avoid any damage to civilian targets and to the holy shrines that happen to be located in Iraq. And we've looked at every target from the outset for avenues of approach, the exact type of weapon to cause damage to the target but preclude damage in the surrounding area, and precision delivery. And I'll be showing you a film clip of the typical type of precision deliveries that we have come to expect. Obviously, it has not been easy. I think you've seen on television the air defenses in Baghdad, and you've seen interviews with the air crew who flew in Vietnam say this is as tough or tougher than anything they've ever seen. I'm very proud of our air crews, the way they've shown tremendous discipline and tremendous courage. It is a long, hard task. We're very optimistic about what we do, but we're not overly confident. What I have now to show you are some film clips of some actual weapons delivery. So let me come around here. And these first two will be F-111 deliveries using laser-guided bombs. This is a runway at an airfield halfway between Baghdad and Kuwait. The center of the runway is the end point. This is where the laser designator is pointed. This is taken at night with infrared sensors. And there the bomb goes off in the center of the runway. And heat shows up as white. And now you'll see the pilot switch to a higher magnification and as he flies away from the target. This is the smoke plume from the bomb, and there's the crater. The next one is a Scud storage building in Kuwait, and keep your eye on the entrance to the storage. Again, the pilot has released his bombs about 2 miles away. He's banking away from the target, leaving the target area, lasing the target, and you'll see 2 bombs fly into the door of the storage bunker. You can almost get airsick watching this. And you'll be able to count each bomb. 1, 2. Those are 2,000-pound bombs. This is the air defense headquarters in the vicinity of Baghdad. These are air shafts that provide best access into this concrete structure. And keep your eye on the front door, the airlock door, as the debris comes out the door from the bomb going in this lead-in air shaft. Here it goes in, and here comes the debris. This is another air defense sector over in the western part of Iraq. It's already been struck by a 117. This is a team effort. The second aircraft comes through, and this part of the building here provides some constructural weakness that will be exploited in this attack, and the bomb will hit in this area here. And this is my counterpart's headquarters in Baghdad. This is the headquarters of the Air Force, and keep your eye on all sides of the building as the airplane overflies the building and drops the bomb down through the center of the building. If we have any success in this air campaign, I can attribute it in large measure to the freedom with which we've been allowed to plan the campaign We've had stringent guidance with regard to civilian damage, things of that nature. But the President down through the Secretary of Defense, Chairman Powell, and General Schwarzkopf have been the key reason we've been able to plan a very efficient military campaign within the guidelines they've set forth to us. Thank you very much.
We'd be very happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Charlene?
Possible entry of Israel into this campaign, and I'll ask you my follow-up so I don't have to waste your time. If indeed Israel does get into this campaign, how will it be coordinated with the Allied forces already in theater?
Charlene, I have no information at all about any entry of Israel into the campaign. That's something that's being handled at the governmental level, and I really couldn't answer any questions in that regard. Yeah, back to you, Mike.
Washington Post. Sir, does the Iraqi attack on Israel change at all the war aims of the United States in this campaign?
Our objectives are exactly the same ones that were announced by the President of the United States quite some time ago, that were in fact the resolutions of the United Nations, and our objectives continue to remain exactly the same.
General, a follow-up to Carol's question. Since the Scud attack on Tel Aviv yesterday, is there a change in the targeting of Saddam Hussein himself? Yesterday, General Powell said he was not a specific target. Has that changed?
So we are not trying to kill any particular person. One of our aims all along has been to make sure that it's very difficult for the leadership to have any impact upon the decision-making process of the subordinate units, and there are several different ways we're going about doing that. But we're not targeting any specific person to kill them. Yeah.
General, either one of you could say whether you have, what kind of results you've got in air attacks on fuel dumps and ammo dumps and that kind of thing in Kuwait, the preposition supplies that the Iraqis would use if there was going to be a ground attack. Have you had any success in destroying that material?
Let me yield to the expert.
The supply areas provide a very lucrative target. Many cases, though, when they're ground forces deployed, you have them in deep revetments and bunkered. I think you saw what we did to the Scud storage area we hit. We're attempting to take out those key elements of the strategic weapons, and we will turn to individual attacks on the ground-based supplies in the Kuwait area.
As a follow-up, what about the, there have been reports that the B-52s were concentrating on the Republican Guards locations. Is that true, and to what extent have you allegedly decimated these Republican Guards concentrations?
The B-52 has been striking targets throughout the whole campaign across both Kuwait and Iraq.
And that's not correct, that report about this.
Well, I can't comment because I haven't seen the report. So.
I think I know the report you're speaking of, and I think that report was certainly premature and I believe incorrect at the present time.
General Schwarzkopf, John Swinney from CNN. You mentioned finding 11 mobile missile launching sites. If you manage to destroy all of those sites, how much of the enemy's ability to launch these missiles will you have destroyed?
That's a very tough question to answer because the estimates of the number of total number of mobile launchers he has varied very widely, even within the intelligence community. But based upon the most recent numbers that we have, I would tell you that it is a rather considerable percentage of the mobile launchers. I'd like to just leave it at that.
Barry Dunsmore of ABC. The fact that the Scuds that were used against Israel didn't appear to be chemical or biological, does that tell you anything about the capacity of the Iraqis to use that kind of a warhead on a Scud?
I think we could speculate about that all day long. I would say, frankly, that I'm quite encouraged by the fact that chemical weapons were not used, and I hope if he has the capability, he does not use them at all. That's the best I can say. I think that anything else would be purely speculative at this point. Yes.
General, do you have any theories about the subdued nature of the response of the Iraqis so far?
I think that General Powell has expressed it, first of all, in the fact that we probably achieved a degree of surprise, tactical surprise that we were trying to achieve. I think, secondly, once again, as Secretary Baker stated after his Geneva press conference, I think that, quite frankly, that the Iraqis just had no concept whatsoever what they were getting involved with when it comes to taking on the coalition forces. Yes, right here.
Have you detected any movement by the Iraqi armored forces?
Nothing significant.
I'm wondering, we hear varying degrees of percentages that the planes hit 80%, some have said 50%. Of these, now the targets that we're talking about, I'm wondering, first of all, how many targets have we hit?
The bombing percentages you see are a function of the number of targets targeted versus the numbers that were hit. The difference in those numbers are people who did not get to the target because of weather or enemy defenses caused them to miss the target, things of that nature. It was kind of relevant to his question about the subdued nature of the Iraqi response. I'd like to take him along one of the sorties and might change his opinion of the subdued nature.
How many targets have we gone after?
We've gone after quite a few targets.
Question for General Horner, please. Can you give us some idea of what the state of the Iraqi Air Force is like right now? How many planes destroyed? How many immobilized because you've got runways that you've destroyed? How many fled to the north? Some general order of magnitude on it?
It's obvious that I'd like to keep track of that. Unfortunately, a lot of their aircraft are in hardened shelters. We attacked the shelter, and we really don't know the results on the aircraft. What we have seen is when they've come up and engaged, we tend to shoot them down if they persist in the engagement. Normally, they break off when our fire control radars lock onto them and flee to the north.
Michael Rigby, TVAM News. What were the targets in Saudi Arabia of the 8 Scud missiles you discovered today?
I have absolutely no idea, but given the positioning of the mobile launchers, the only territory they could have reached with those mobile launchers would have been into Saudi Arabia. It's an area that we've been watching, quite frankly, expecting something there, and we were delighted to see that they did exactly what we thought they'd do. Yes, sir.
General Observer yesterday confirmed that an oil refinery near Baghdad was hit, and one near Basra was also rumored to be hit. Can you confirm that oil installations such as refineries and storage depots are targets of military targets?
Let me tell you that we have consistently all along made it a point of not going against targets that were not of a military nature or would not contribute to the military effort. So any targets that we do hit along those lines would be targets that we feel would contribute to the military effort and not just simply done for the sake of destroying something.
How many Iraqi aircraft have been shot down in air-to-air combat?
Right now, the figure looks like it's 8. It'd be 6 by the Air Force and 2 by the United States Navy. And then there's 2 probables we're looking into.
General Horner, as you probably know, the Iraqis have been censoring and limiting the broadcast of television reports from Baghdad. To what extent were those television reports beneficial to you in evaluating the success of the air campaign?
I really don't know because I don't have a TV set down at my command center. But in retrospect, after getting a chance to look at some of the playbacks, I think I'm going to put a television set in.
Well, Behringer, New York Times. Have there been any reports of Iraqi desertions either along the occupied Kuwait border or the Iraqi-Saudi border? And are there any numbers available?
I think that's a question that's better asked of the Saudis. They're the ones that are handling that, and I'd rather leave that in their hands. All the way back and back.
General Sandygal, IGN, London. Can I ask one to you and one to your colleague? How far, roughly, are you into your campaign, the aerial bombardment campaign? And secondly, could you tell us how successful the tornadoes, the British tornadoes, have been, and whether the JP-233 has come up to expectations?
Which questions for me and which questions for General Horner?
General question about how far are you into your overall planned campaign, would you say, without giving us much detail?
All right, we're exactly as far as we expected to be 36 hours into the campaign. You want to take the other question?
The tornado obviously is very important to the campaign. It's being flown by Saudi Arabia, Britain, and Italy. The reason it's so important because it gives us the capability to penetrate the high, well-defended areas. And you're absolutely right. The 233 has done very well on the airfield attacks.
Back over here.
Can you tell us if you
think now that a ground assault will be necessary to liberate Kuwait?
I think it's far too early to speculate on anything in the future. We are going to continue to execute our campaign plan exactly as it's spelled out, and if any unforeseen developments should take place during the process of that campaign, we're completely prepared to react to them. Yes, sir.
What percentage of the ships that you had dedicated to the enforcement of the embargo against Iraq have you turned into battleships, battle-oriented ships?
We're continuing to have a full-blown maritime interception regime just as we did before. We have the same number of ships and probably a few more now involved in the maritime interception regime, but there hasn't been any significant change. Yes, sir, right here.
This is Mohammed from Kuwait Television. I'd like to ask what's your message to the Kuwaiti people inside Kuwait, because this will be seen in Kuwait.
I think the message is very clear. It's the message that the President of the United States has stated. It's the message that the United Nations has stated. And it's the message that all of the forces that are involved in this coalition have stated. And that's the campaign has begun to eject Iraq from Kuwait and to restore the legitimate government to Kuwait. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Ibrahim Abdullah from Riyadh newspaper. As well as you know, we are a peace country. We're looking of time. Do you know how long it take us to get rid of this trouble from the Gulf?
That's an impossible question to answer. I would tell you that nobody is more dedicated to getting this over as quickly as possible than the President of the United States, than the people of the United States, and then I, and then all of the other people involved in this thing. So we're going to do it as rapidly as we possibly can, but we're also going to do it in such a way that we try and minimize casualties. We don't want to have to pay a terrible price just to get it over with quickly. Back in the back.
Told me that 192 out of the first 1,000 air sorties were flown by Saudis. Can you confirm that, or is that of military?
That I can't confirm or deny that number, but that's approximately right.
Can you tell us what proportion of your assets you've so far been able to devote to attacking Kuwaiti ground targets as opposed to a mixture of targets in Iraq? And can you give me one technical answer? Are the mobile launchers you're talking about all basic Scuds, or are they the Iraqi developments of the Scud, the Al Hussein, the Al Abbas?
Okay, I don't think the first question I'd like to get into. The second question, it's a combination of both. Over here, yes.
Can you tell us what the role of the Canadian planes were?
The Canadian planes right now, CF-18s, are flying counter air defense and capping both oversea and overland.
Since when are they in the operation?
Well, they've been in the operation from the start, flying air defense for the coalition forces and the kingdom, right from since they got here.
All the way back in the back.
General Warner, you pointed out that one site that was attacked by the F-117. In general terms, can you give us your impressions as to how the aircraft is performing? A follow-up question, were all the images we saw taken from F-111s using the laser-guided bombs, or were there different platforms that were involved in the images?
The images, the first two were 111s, and the rest were 117. I could tell you the F-117 is doing great. You'd think I was a prejudiced witness. But quite frankly, you see the evidence of what it can do, and is doing day in and day out. Richard.
I'm Richard Pyle of AP. General Horner, how many of the aircraft that we have lost have been lost to enemy fire? How many to missiles? And what is the status of the Iraqi anti-aircraft missile defenses now? This was supposedly a high-priority target system. Can you give us something on that?
In terms of losses, we don't know, but we suspect one to SAMs and the rest to AAA. With regard to the air defenses, in some areas, they're probably the most difficult air defenses assembled in the world. Other areas, they're not quite that difficult. And obviously, that's going to be a very strenuous campaign, achieving complete control of the air.
How much have you destroyed so far?
Quite a bit.
All the way back in the back.
Newspaper, Zurich. Once you get on the ground, once you get forward, who is going to do the actual fighting on the Allied side? Is there a special focus on the Arab units to do that?
This is a coalition operation, and everybody that's involved in this coalition is planning to take part. It's just as it has been from the very beginning. Yes.
General, could you give give us your best estimate of Iraqi casualties, military and civilian, at this point?
I have absolutely no idea what the Iraqi casualties are, and I tell you, if I have anything to say about it, we're never going to get into the body count business. That's at best nothing more than rough, wild estimates, and it's ridiculous to do that. And so we couldn't do it even if we wanted to, but right now we have no estimate whatsoever. Back to Matt. How is your cooperation with the French Army, I mean French Air Force? The cooperation with the French Air Force and the French Army is absolutely superb.
It is.
Yeah.
General Powell indicated yesterday that one of your principal objects was the destruction of the Iraqi command and control. Can you give us some estimate as to how far down that line you've gone?
I think to date, you know, we have been quite successful. Let me leave it at that.
To follow up to that question, but a little broader, how is the coordination of the various forces actually working? Could you give us a little insight into that?
Well, I think I'd let General Horner answer that from the standpoint of the air campaign, because this is, as you can well imagine, coordinating the nations of seven different nations and coordinating the airstrikes and the type of aircraft that are being used is a rather difficult proposition. Whether it's effective or not, I will leave to him.
It's effective.
You can say something.
But my question, sir, was exactly how is it being done? I mean,
It's
it
what you
seems
do.
like an enormous effort, and
It is an enormous effort. It's, of course, now we have a lot of computers, and you can bring together the tens of thousands of minute details, radio frequencies, altitudes, tanker rendezvous, bomb configurations, who supports who's flying escort, there's just thousands and thousands of details, and we work them together as one group, put them together in what we call a common air tasking order, and it provides a sheet of music that everybody sings the same song off.
Yes, sir.
We know something of what's happening in Baghdad, but we know very little of what's happening inside Kuwait. Can you give us any picture of what you're attacking and how it's going in Kuwait itself, around Kuwait City?
As I said, I think the best answer to that is it's going just about as we expected. We haven't run into anything that we didn't expect. As a matter of fact, the situation is probably a little bit better than what we expected inside Kuwait. Yes, sir.
Can you tell me, is it the case that as long as Iraqi troops remain in Kuwait, a ground offensive will be inevitable at some stage, regardless of the success of the air operation?
I think there's too many hypotheticals in there to even begin to answer that question. As I say, we have a campaign plan. We're going to follow that campaign plan until we accomplish the objectives set out by the United Nations resolutions and as announced by the President of the United States. That's our last question right here. You got it.
With regard to the bombardment of Hafji yesterday, General, have you any information on the type of Iraqi artillery that was used and roughly the force strength?
Yeah, the estimate was that it was a multiple rocket launcher, the short-range multiple rocket launcher that we've seen used by many third country forces, and as you know, what it did was just hit one oil storage tank and didn't do any significant damage. I'd just like to close with one last comment that I think is important to remember, and that's that the courage and the professionalism that's been exhibited by all of the people that have been involved in this campaign in the last 36 hours is nothing short of inspirational. I think that we should all be very, very proud. Every country should be very, very proud of the young men that have been up in these aircraft, of the young women that have been up in the aircraft and the way they've done their jobs. And I have every confidence that as they gain more experience, they're just going to do better than the great job they've already done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Schwarzkopf, General Horner, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation. This concludes...
That's General Norman Schwarzkopf, along with Lieutenant General Chuck Horner, giving a briefing this morning from Saudi Arabia. Among the things that the General talked about this morning, that the number of Allied and U.S. aircraft that have been down is 7. That's 7 Allied aircraft have been lost, 3 American, 2 British, 1 Italian, and 1 Kuwaiti. We're going to get to some military analysis in just a second. The other major story of the morning is whether or not Israel is going to retaliate for the Scud missile attack last night. There are all kinds of unconfirmed reports that some Israeli planes are already on their way to Iraq. We have got nothing close to official confirmation on that, and if anything close to that, we're hearing that that's just the opposite of what in fact has happened. We want to go to the Pentagon right now to Jim Stewart with a little insight from there on what we've just been watching and listening to for the last 30 minutes or so. Jim?
Good morning, Harry. Two things stand out here. One is that there is an intensive search apparently going on for what Schwarzkopf accurately refers to as these needles in a haystack. The Air Force spotted 11 mobile Scud missiles. They knocked out 3. But I think the important thing here that Schwarzkopf pointed out is that there are, and I believe I heard him correctly say, a considerable number of Scuds left, mobile and apparently fixed as well. The other thing that the general talked about that's worth noting about is this more hints that ground forces are maneuvering to position themselves for an attack. He mentioned that amphibious forces are now moving into the Gulf. The strategists have long said that once ground action begins, we can anticipate that the Marines would be involved, possibly with a beach landing. And he was referring, of course, to these amphibious Marine forces that have been positioned now in the Persian Gulf for some days. As you pointed out, 7 aircraft, only 3 U.S. still down. That's a confirmed total of 5 U.S. casualties thus far. Harry?
All right, Jim Stewart, we want to get some further analysis now and another look at some of those incredible photographs we saw out of Saudi Arabia. Morley Safer is standing by along with David Ahrens, one of our military analysts. Good morning, gentlemen.
David, those photographs were absolutely fascinating, and I guess further what we were talking about before, the effectiveness of these remarkably sophisticated weapons. I wonder if we can look at the tape of those 3 strikes that General Schwarzkopf and General Horner talked about. And the first is a runway, F-111. It's quite obvious when that bomb hits now. The next one, we get to it, which I believe also is a F-111 strike.
Yes, that's what he said.
Coming up is a Scud storage facility. We're still banking away from that runway attack here. This is where they literally put it through the front door.
Yes, that's...
Stay with this, because it takes a minute. And as General Horner said, you can get kind of airsick watching this one, but stay with it. And clearly at just about this point, I would guess, the bomb has been delivered. The plane is banking away, but keeping his sights on the target.
That's right, because the laser energy reflects back to the bomb.
Wow. It's remarkable. Now these next 2, I believe, are stealth.
Yes, this is the stealth fighter bomber. And this also is remarkable. It goes right down the little pipe there, just like in Star Wars 1, at the conclusion of it. And you see...
It's an air vent, I believe, that
right.
He's targeting here to get that bomb.
That's right,
there it is. And here, this next one, this is, I believe, another...
This is another stealth, right.
Stealth, and I believe another Scud facility. No, this is an air defense facility of some kind, as I recall General Horner. Well, we didn't get the Air Force headquarters, which in a way was the most remarkable.
That's right.
Of all.
They hit that tall, high-rise Air Force building.
You know, listening to General, here it is. This is the Air Force headquarters, General Horner's counterpart's office, in effect, in Baghdad, downtown Baghdad. And this really gives us some idea of how specific these weapons can be. He's banking over the building now, and it literally goes down what I assume is the air shaft or the chimney or something.
Right through the top of the building, and What's interesting about this is, of course, is that the stealth fighter was so controversial in Panama, but it's certainly proved its worth here.
Well, thank you very much, David.
Morley?
Welcome back to this special edition of CBS. I think, Harry, it's yours.
Thank you, Morley. It's a lot of irons in the fire, as it were, this morning. Paula?
And right now we're going to go to Washington, where we find Senator Richard Lugar standing by. Sitting next to him, Representative Stephen Solars of New York, Representative Lee Hamilton of Indiana, Richard Lugar of Indiana as well. Good morning to the three of you.
Good morning.
Senator Lugar, I'm going to start with you first. We seem to be getting all kinds of conflicting reports out of Israel right now as to what the status of the cabinet meetings are. We have one piece of copy suggesting that Israeli Foreign Minister David Levy says Israel has not decided whether to retaliate for the Iraqi missile attack on his country. Can you bring us up to date on that?
I can only reflect what I think is common sense, and that is that the Israelis want to make certain that those launchers are taken care of by somebody and that the Scud missile problem dissipates. I would gather that their conversations with our authorities have been to the effect of our confidence that we're going to be able to get rid of the Scud missiles and the launchers. And of course, we just heard General Schwarzkopf report that 11 had been sighted, at least 3 destroyed, there may be some more. Last night we saw reports that there were as many as 75 launchers potentially available to the Iraqis. General Schwarzkopf didn't confirm that today, but there were a lot out there. And my guess is that the Israelis are going to give us some time, but at the same time, in terms of defense of their country and their people, they're reserving the right to attack.
In your judgment, how much pressure is Israel under right now not to attack? We heard statements from the British Foreign Secretary earlier this morning urging them not to retaliate. We've heard the same sort of caution coming from our own administration.
Well, that pressure is obviously intense. The whole idea of the coalition holding together has been based on the fact that a holy war, religious war, would not occur. And the Israelis, in fairness, have been extraordinarily cooperative, given their proximity, the action, and the danger to their people. But I think the politics of the thing is clear to all parties.
Representative Solars, if Israel decides to retaliate, how will this in fact change the equation of the war that's now 36 hours old?
I think it'll probably have a relatively limited impact on the war. My impression is that the coalition will in fact hold together. Both Egypt and Saudi Arabia, for example, have already indicated that in the event Israel was attacked first, they would understand it if Israel chose in a proportionate manner to strike back. Both King Fahd of Saudi Arabia and President Mubarak of Egypt clearly recognize that it is Iraq and not Israel that poses the primary threat to their countries and to the region. And they are both far more concerned by Saddam than they are by Shamir.
Representative Hamilton, I'm wondering if you could respond to this unconfirmed report that says that an Iraqi minister is saying that Israeli warplanes have flown to Saudi Arabia to join in the multinational force. Is that at all plausible?
Well, it's a possibility, of course, but I certainly wouldn't take that as an accurate report. It serves the interests of the Iraqis to indicate that the Israelis are very much involved in this conflict. And I don't think we have any hard evidence of that at all. Israel has indeed acted with considerable restraint, and even if they were to counterattack here, I don't think that in itself would blow this coalition apart. The coalition is much firmer than that. We have to be very careful here about the prospect of Iraqi propaganda, and my initial reaction to that statement you just cited is that it very much falls along those lines.
Senator Lugar, we have just gotten a pretty good briefing from General Schwarzkopf. I'm wondering if you could share with us your assessment of what we've just heard.
Well, General Schwarzkopf and General Horner offered really remarkable photographs of what we've been hearing in briefings from from Secretary Cheney and General Powell. I think that each of the senators, at least who heard the Senate briefing yesterday, was impressed with the sheer number of sorties, the sophistication of the equipment, the remarkable performance and proficiency of our pilots. In short, the pounding that Iraqi military and command facilities are receiving is unparalleled, really, in the history of warfare. More sorties in one day than in 2 weeks in Vietnam, for example. And the effects of this grind on to a point that Saddam Hussein is going to have very, very little left in terms of command structure and ability to communicate with the troops. I think General Schwarzkopf alluded to that today, that this is a total campaign, and the isolation of leadership and command from the forces in Kuwait is of the essence.
Representative Solars, General Schwarzkopf also made it very clear that this some 36-hour campaign is not Panama. It will not be over in one day. What is it that you think the American public should be preparing itself for?
I think this campaign will go on for some time. I also happen to think that Operation Desert Storm was appropriately entitled. Desert storms are brief but violent. This one will rage and it will thunder. But by the time it is completed, much of Iraq's conventional military power will have been decimated, and Iraq's weapons of mass destruction will be destroyed.
And Representative Hamilton, your view?
Well, my view is that we'd better begin thinking now about what happens after the war. Clearly, winning the war is the most important item on the agenda now. But no matter what happens in this war, we're going to be left with very, very large problems in the Middle East. And how we use our military power now is going to have an impact on the shape of things after the war. We want to be very sure that our military efforts are completely in line with our political objectives. For example, it's not in our interest, I think, to totally destroy Iraq. It is in our interest to have some kind of balance of power in the Gulf after the war. Military power then has to be used for political objectives. And I hope we do not get so caught up in this marvelous performance by the armed services, and they deserve enormous credit for what they've done, that we lose sight of the shape of the years to come.
Representative Hamilton and Solars and Senator Lugar, thank you all three for joining us this morning with your insights into this some 37-hour campaign now.
CBS special coverage of Operation Desert Storm continues right after this.
This is a News Channel 5 special report. America at War.
Good morning, everyone. CBS News has given us just a few minutes to update you this morning on the status of the situation of the war in the Persian Gulf. If there are any new developments in the Persian Gulf, we will let you know immediately, so please stay with us this morning. Now, here is the latest. Israel considers striking back after yesterday's Iraqi missile attack. We'll have a live report on the worries this is creating in Washington. Also, 2 more U.S. jets have gone down in the conflict. That makes 3 U.S. aircraft lost. Both jets that went down today have 2 crew members and no word yet on their fate. And the Pentagon has identified the pilot of the plane lost yesterday. Navy Lieutenant Commander Michael Spiker is listed as missing in action. Also, the Pentagon releases reconnaissance video showing the dramatic results of the Allied forces' airstrike in Baghdad, Iraq. And among the details just released, the commander of the U.S. forces in the Gulf says 8 Iraqi fighter planes have been down and that 2 Marines were slightly injured when the Iraqis engaged Allied forces in a ground battle, a battle that was ended by a U.S. airstrike. The U.S. also claims to have sunk or disabled 3 Iraqi patrol boats in a naval conflict. We'll look at how the national headlines are affecting the soldiers from Fort Campbell and National Guard members from our area. We'll also meet a family that may be risking lives of 5 people later on today. We'll bring you that story, and we'll also give you the latest war developments throughout this newscast this morning. It has been a day and a half since the U.S. and its allies went to war with Iraq, and Israel may soon be escalating the battle. Tel Aviv and the surrounding area were hit with Iraqi Scud missiles yesterday. Remarkably, though, injuries were minor and no one was killed. The Israeli cabinet is considering retaliation against Iraq. Now, many U.S. leaders fear Israel's entry into the conflict might break up the alliance of nations opposing Iraq. Now, Washington is watching the latest developments in the Middle East very carefully. News Channel 5's Washington correspondent Carolyn Gorman joins us now from Washington with a live report. Carolyn?
Roy, the possible entry of Israel into the war could change the whole complexion of this conflict. And this morning, Washington is hoping that Israel will resist the urge to retaliate. President Bush monitored the breaking events in the Middle East behind closed doors as the White House made no public comments on events that could split the international coalition against Saddam Hussein. As U.S. bombers struggle to take out Iraqi-launched Scud missiles, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. told reporters that the attack was no surprise and that Israel will consider its options.
That, of course, Israel reserves the right to respond in any way it would deem fit, without going at the present time into particulars what the decision of the Israeli government in that respect will be.
The U.S. is urging Israel to stay out of the war to preserve the fragile anti-Iraq coalition.
Obviously, the Israelis have had a tradition of when hit, they hit back and hit back double. And if they do that in this case, then it could very well break up much of our Arab allies.
The big fear in Washington today is that tonight Iraq will send in more Scuds and that this time Israel will come under chemical attack. It would be very hard indeed for Israel to then decide not to retaliate. It's also worth noting that there are unconfirmed reports this morning, they are French reports, that Israel at this very moment may be retaliating against Iraq. The French reports indicate that perhaps 8 Israeli jets are on their way to Baghdad even as we speak. Of course, we will keep you updated on this as it happens, and we will give you any details as we get them. Roy?
All right, Carolyn, thank you so much for that report. News Channel 5's Carolyn Gorman reporting live from the nation's capital in Washington. Now, Israel was not the only target for Iraqi Scud missiles yesterday. This is a missile being fired on U.S. forces in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, the first missile attack behind Allied lines. And American surface-to-air missiles intercepted that Scud missile and blew it up before it hit its target. Now, that missile attack is a big concern to Tennessee National Guard members. Adjutant General Carl Wallace says there is a good possibility that our troops are in that area. He said Dhahran is crucial to one Tennessee unit's mission, but he wouldn't say which unit. But Wallace did say that some missions of the Tennessee National Guard members are working. Members of the Knoxville unit are refueling fighter planes that are bombing Iraq and Kuwait.
Opportunity really to let them out and fly them. And the equipment held, the equipment did well, the equipment performed well, and they were probably having a good time.
A Memphis unit is doing the ground preparations on fighter jets, and the deployment is still going on. Yesterday, a Nashville unit left for Saudi Arabia, and a unit from Smyrna was put on alert. Tennessee Senator Jim Sasser says Fort Campbell troops may already be inside Iraq and Kuwait. He says members of an elite task force from Fort Campbell are probably engaging in special missions behind enemy lines. But Sasser says his information comes from knowledge of how the group operates and not Defense Department intelligence. And while the soldiers from Fort Campbell risk their lives in the Gulf, Army officials are worried about safety on the fort. Fort Campbell has been under tight security measures since the war began. Many of the entrances have been closed, and there are bomb-sniffing dogs at some of the other entrances to Fort Campbell.
There will be times when we will be checking ID cards, and that's quite obvious. We'll be checking ID cards at gates. And other times we'll be using the dogs, and other times we'll be doing vehicle checks. Part of security is not to set a pattern.
As an added precaution, new fences were installed around some areas of the base that used to be unprotected. Now, News Channel 5 is making some program changes today so we can continue to bring you the latest news on the war in the Gulf. For the time being, our midday report will move to 11 a.m. It will be followed by The Young and the Restless at 11:30. Then Talk of the Town will be seen at 12:30. We will interrupt network programming at any time if there are any important local developments related to Operation Desert Storm. Now, to check on today's weather forecast, let's take a look at that with Joe Case, who joins us now, who's going to tell us about today's weather. And it's a little chilly out there this morning.
A little bit chilly out there this morning, 32 degrees here in Nashville right now. Our forecast for the rest of this day, partly cloudy skies around the area. Our high temperature is going to be about 53, low temperature tonight, 38 degrees.
It is a chilly day today.
It is starting out that way. A little frost on the windshield, too, so do drive in carefully.
I also saw some ground fog on the way in this morning.
Did you?
Yeah. I would imagine that's going to affect the traffic this morning. We don't have time to check in with Traffic Jim this morning because of the Gulf situation, but I would imagine that's going to affect us somewhat.
Well, the ground fog will probably be out in the low-lying areas like you saw this morning in those normal areas around the river basins and so forth and around the lakes and stuff, so do be careful about that. The frost again this morning with, it was last hour, it got down to 30 degrees. The hour before that, 29. So we've got plenty of frost to go around for everybody out there this morning, too. So take some extra time to do some scraping out there.
You may have to get out a little early and clean off your windshields this morning. And remember to drive carefully. Keep your headlights on because of that ground fog in some of the low-lying areas. And remember to stay tuned to News Channel 5 all morning long for the latest on the Gulf situation. We'll keep you up to date all day today. So stay with us. Thanks for joining us this morning. We'll give you back now to CBS. Bye-bye.
You're watching CBS News' continuing coverage of Showdown in the Gulf. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here are Harry Smith and Paula Zahn.
Welcome back to this special edition of CBS This Morning. CBS News coverage of the war in the Gulf continues. I'm Harry Smith.
Good morning, everybody, and I'm Paula Zahn. Here are the headlines at this hour. The U.S.